brands that are really successful, they go out of their way to make you feel like you matter, to make you
Mm.
feel seen, to make you feel like you belong. And you have the opportunity to do that with your story and your life, but you have to filter that through the eyes of your audience.
Friends, I'm so excited to introduce you to my dear friend Rachel Lee. She is an amazing brand photographer and marketing strategist, but I don't want to give it all away. Rachel, I would love for you to introduce yourself to us today.
Yeah, like Dennis said, I am Rachael Lee. I am a brand photographer and coach for creative entrepreneurs. Essentially, I help you define the brand internally and then translate that over into marketing, brand imagery in a way that helps you to sell your brand without saying a word.
And my friend, you do a beautiful job doing that. Now, when I first met you, you were recently coming out of a pivot into brand photography. And I would love to hear a little bit about that pivot. And then how has life been since that?
Oh my gosh, that is a throwback. I remember we met at a photography conference back in 2021. And I was fresh off of a pivot. Literally a year in, I started my business at the age of 19. I was a wedding photographer and I did that for a couple of years, but then kind of woke up one day and was like, what happens when I get married one day, Lord willing, and have children? And do I see myself doing this for the rest of my life? Because I
Mm.
was getting a little bit uncomfortable with the wedding photography hat. It wasn't giving me the balance I wanted in my life because I didn't really have a social life. I was working in on the weekends, and that was when all of my friends were available, and it just wasn't fun anymore. And I was enough of an introvert that parts of the day I loved the parts that involved styling and directing and just being with people. I absolutely loved those times. But stick me on the dance floor during open dancing, and I was ready to jet. I was ready. And so I was like, is there another way that lets me do the types of photography I love?
Mm.
Um, and not have to be awkward by come the end of the night, you know? And so I think that was the first, like, prompting. It didn't I mean, it kind of went deeper than that. It didn't really and it set me on this journey to kind of start questioning everything I thought I needed to be in business,
Mm.
and the path I thought I had to walk on. And as I started questioning those things, I realized I had been just as obsessed with brands and branding since I started my photography business as I was about learning lighting and shooting and all of those things. I was much more of like a brand head than I was a business head. So I did a couple of swaps with various business friends, like my hairstylist. She used to like, I would give her free photos and she would cut my hair for free. And I think that testing for a while gave me the ability to lean into something without the pressure for it to perform, because I think that was part of the reason why I had gotten so in deep in my business, and had chased a rabbit trail, um, and ended up in a spot where I just wasn't comfortable or confident in my offerings. And it wasn't because I wasn't good at them. It wasn't because they weren't working, but I just wasn't content and I didn't see a way forward. And sometimes you just have to chase a rabbit trail and not have any pressure to make it work. At least that's what I needed to do. I'm very much like I like to have a right way of doing something. And if it doesn't feel like it's the right way, then in my mind, it's the wrong way. And I should completely make another, like a turn and go in a different direction. Um, and so I tell you all of those things to say, by the time I met Denna in 2021 at United, I was a full fledged brand photographer. And I just remember this release. And the longer I was in it, the more that I was like, gosh, this just feels like my strength. People have always talked about zone of genius. They've always talked about why statements. They've always talked about all these different things that are supposed to be in your brand. And as a wedding photographer, I never could tell you what those things were. But by the time I lived in the reality of being a brand photographer for a while, they were starting to bubble up to the surface. And I was connecting the dots to finally have confidence in a business I was building. And I could actually tell you for the first time, like, why I was doing what I was doing, which for me was really, really huge. Because if I can't tell you why I'm doing something internally, I'm saying, gosh, I'm a fraud. And it's just a moment until someone finds out. And that is no way to run a business when you're the only one doing it. Um, and so I don't know. I think fast forward to now, that journey of solidifying that brand and stepping into a new identity has opened so many doors. Within a year of becoming a brand photographer, I saw everybody, not everybody, a lot of my clients walking through similar experiences that I had. And as a brand photographer from the outside, I get to speak back into their brands and point out the depth in their brands that a lot of the time you just breeze right past when you're in the middle of it all. Um, but there wasn't a good program out there for them to slow down long enough and not reinvent themselves, but finally fill out a workbook that allowed them to actually show up in a different way, that the data that they were writing down could change their business. There wasn't a good program for that. And so me in my I'm already reinventing myself in one way, why might as well not do it in another? Worked with a coach to launch a program called the Brand Plan. So within a year of pivoting to brand photography, I also pivoted to being a brand coach, which now revenue wise, I don't know that I would recommend two major pivots like that in a span of 24 months. Just because then you when you don't focus on one thing for a while, you can't let it grow and let it stand on its own. But if I would go back, I would still wouldn't change anything because it forced me to step into that role that is very much aligned with who I am as a human and the strengths that I've been given. And
Mhm.
had I waited for the right time, it probably still wouldn't have happened. And so I wouldn't change anything. I would probably make a few more wise decisions. Um, but now standing in my business, I can't imagine going back to 2021 when I was at United and in between sessions writing brand plan workbooks and about to launch it into the world. I was taking a beta program through it. It was a whole thing. I can't imagine Rachel now not having that as her reality. And so, does that answer your question?
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I want to talk about so many things that you shared here today. And especially want to come back to the brand plan because I've been blessed to go through it. I believe in the program. It's amazing. But one of the things that I want to go back and ask you is you kind of talked about that you were very interested when it comes to like the brands and then the stories behind them. What was it that first made you pause and notice more? Like I know that you're a very observant person, but especially when it comes to brands, but what was it that piqued your interest into, like, taking a deep dive into branding?
Okay, that's a really, really good question that I think we will have to do a thought in progress type of answer to figure out. Because I don't think anybody's ever asked me that. Um, I think from the very beginning, this idea that you have a specific set of gifts that you are given, a
Mm,
specific set of people that you are designed to serve, a specific way of showing up. I'm a person that has a hard time believing that I'm good enough.
mm,
I'm always chasing to measure up in some way, shape, or form. And so I think the reason why the idea of a brand as something that comes from me, but is this external identity that gives my business a foundation to stand on. When I'm wavering, when I don't trust who I am in the middle of something, I think it gave me stability when I felt very unstable in a lot of areas of
mm,
my life. And I would not have said back in 2019 that like when I really started attending certain things. No, I guess it was 2017 when I started all of this fresh out of high school and I was attending just about every brand session alongside the here's how to pose your client sessions. Um, I wouldn't have told you that that's what it was, but now the 2025 version of Rachel looking back, that's probably the real reason.
that's beautiful. Now, when it comes to brands, you talked about, like, how it was something that was consistent and strong when you felt like as an individual, there may have been some wavering. Talk to me a little bit about how those 2, like, come together because I think it can be it's an interesting thing to balance, like, especially for, like, personal brands, like, am I my brand? Is my brand its own thing? Are they combined? Talk to me a little bit about like the headspace there, the process there, your personal beliefs when it comes around that. Give me a peek inside your brain, Rachel.
Um, I think we have to start by dismantling the belief that a personal brand has to be you in order to function.
Mm.
I think I have come to this conclusion that a personal brand comes from you, but it is not for you
Ooh,
because a
wait,
brand is a
explain that.
means. I'm going to say it again for the people in the back. A personal brand comes from you, but it is not for you because here's the thing in the eyes of the law, your business is a person. So your brand is the personality it wears, it's the identity that it has. And the business is built to serve other people. If it's not there to serve other people in some way, shape, or form, then it's either a glorified hobby
Mm,
or it's something that will ultimately not go anywhere because it has to sell, and selling is a service. And so to chase all of those rabbit trails at one time, this means that you must be different from your personal brand. Your personal brand comes from you, but it doesn't have to be all about you.
mm,
And this was something I did not understand in the beginning. You can see if you scroll back down my Instagram feed enough, if you're really curious, you can see those bits of identity crisis that I had because I was in the middle of an industry, especially with weddings,
mhm,
where I was serving people who were getting married, who were starting a brand new season of their life. But I was chronically single. um, and you were in a part like a trend in our industry, especially in photography, where people built their brands around superficial things. So they would
mm,
say, I love coffee. My brand is all about coffee. Or I love tacos. Or I love my dog. Or I love my children and my husband. And we were in a space where building a personal brand meant sharing your entire life. But I've
mm,
come to the conclusion that a personal brand, all it has to do is feel personal. And the
mm,
beautiful thing as a small business owner is that it's going to feel personal because you are a person. And
mm,
so when you dig down below the superficial things that you, as a knee jerk, want to share, when you only want to share about your day, or you only want to share about your coffee obsession, which I still do, or you only want to share about those things, you have to ask yourself the question, why does my audience care about this, and why? Because I
mm,
think when we start to not just get curious about our own lives, but of the lives of the people that we serve, it allows us to be incredibly personal. And if you start paying attention to the brands that are really successful, they go out of their way to make you feel like you matter, to make you
mm,
feel seen, to make you feel like you belong. And you have the opportunity to do that with your story and your life, but you have to filter that through the eyes of your audience. And when you do that, you become a personal brand. Personal brand is not the same as an influencer brand. You don't have to share your entire life in order to have something to share. You get to pull the pieces out that intersect with your clients' stories, that help them to feel seen, help them to feel known. And you can add in layers that aren't necessarily like that, like my coffee journey, to give it a little bit of personality, but you also have the freedom to pick and choose and to curate. It is not lying to not share your whole life.
That is beautiful. I feel like for some people, that is gonna come with so much freedom, where I feel like it is easy to get stuck in the mindset that it has to be all or nothing. I either have to share all of my life and show up on social media and give it all away, or I have to keep it all so close to keep it safe and protected. And so if we're getting practical, because that's one of the things that I love doing with you, Rachel, in our conversations, in our Voxer chats, is we talk about these big ideas, but then we get practical. Give me a nugget or a takeaway that someone could take or use or apply today when they're trying to figure out what they should or shouldn't share. Like if they're like, what am I trying to figure out that is comfortable for me to share? Like what would be some words of wisdom or advice or a filter that they could process things through to make those decisions?
Yeah. First of all, I want to come off and say if you haven't figured this out, it's totally okay. It's okay that you don't know what other than your personal life to share. You
Mm,
have the permission to be in the middle. You have the permission to be figuring things out. You're not doing anything wrong. You just maybe haven't heard the right bit of advice yet. And so I think first we're going to start there so that no shame spirals begin.
yep.
Um, but I think the best bit of practical advice isn't going to sound practical when I first say it. Um, it's to start noticing and getting really curious. I want you for a while to throw spaghetti at the wall. It's Or you have two options. One, if you haven't been sharing anything personal in your life and you have gotten stuck in a cycle of only sharing your work and letting that be the thing that leads, then you're going to spend a season where you're going to very intentionally throw some spaghetti at the wall. Pick the parts of your life that are going to feel aligned with your ideal client's life.
Mm,
Okay. This doesn't mean that they're not going to care about your life. Friends and other, like you have friends who are in different seasons of life than you. There are
Mhm.
things about your life that you care about in their lives because you care about them. So you can keep that in the forefront of your mind. However, also use a measure of discernment and wisdom when you are showing up. Remember the brand you're building and share from that brand. Okay? We're not just throwing all of the options, not all of the pasta at the wall, only one kind of pasta. Okay? So if you have taken the step where you've already shared. Dana is a really good example of this. So I'm going to speak from her brand as a practical way to think about this. So Dana went through a season where she was really good at showing up, really good at posting. But the thing is that when you're in a season where you're only showing up and you're just doing it to check it off, and you're not intentionally paying attention to what people are saying back to you and what they're responding to, then you get in this season of you don't know why what's working is working. And so if you feel like you're there where you've been posting and putting things out and stuff is resonating, but you're not quite sure what is resonating, I want you to take a period of time where you really, really look at what people are responding to. Pay attention to not just comments and not just DMs, but look in your analytics and see what gets people to visit your profile. What gets them to go tap on a link? What are the things that they bring up when they're having conversations? Because there's one thing that we figured out in Dennis brand where if we chase a rabbit trail, we'll go way too far off. But there were two things she was intentionally doing. One, she was sharing tea time, where every day when she would make her tea, she would just hop on her stories and talk about something there as she cheers her tea. And that was incredibly on brand for her. And people started paying attention to the fact that they got to come into her kitchen with her and have a one-on-one conversation, or at least that's what it felt like. And it really didn't matter what she talked about in tea time. The tea time felt very personal to her brand and to her people. That is part of her personal brand. The other thing that she naturally shares is, and I know this because we are also friends, so I had a little bit of an extra line into her life, but she has this combination of hobbies and like things about her personal life that she would share occasionally, um, but that and people would respond to them, but when I pointed out the fact that people do respond to them and here's how you can connect it to your offerings, she got to more intentionally share about those things and package them in such a way that they now felt like an intentional part of her brand instead of an accidental part of her brand. And so, but that only happened because she paused long enough to start taking notes about what was working and then take those notes and then make something of them.
It's beautiful. I feel like the biggest thing that you're pointing to there is the opportunity to just get curious. And I feel like with the pace in which so many of us live life, we are quickly zooming from one thing to the next and we're not pausing to take it all in. And I think someone that we can trust, that we love, giving us permission or even challenging us a little bit to say, no, I want you to pause. I want you to look back and see, why is this working? Like, what is going well here? What isn't? Where am I not getting responses? Is something that we all need. So I'm grateful for that. Now, as we're going into a new year, we're here in 2025. We're actually almost wrapping up Q1, which is wild to think about. What is something that is emerging? And it can be in your life, it can be a trend. What is something that's emerging that you're excited about in this year?
Okay. Um, I feel like I at least have one thing, if not two things, because your girl has a lot of words. Okay. So the first thing I'm loving with the way that we're moving um in technological advances, I'm loving two things, and they're gonna feel like they're the antithesis of each other. One, I am loving AI. I am loving the way that ChatGPT is becoming a bit of a personal assistant, coach, content assistant, my right hand. I say woman. A lot of people refer to it as a man. I say woman, but I love the help because it has helped me to get unstuck.
Mm.
There are a lot of things that I was able to churn out in Q1 of this year because I had someone there to talk to me when my friends like Denna, who were also busy in their business, weren't available 24/7 in Voxer. Um, and I love the relationships I have with other people in business, but I realized a thing in myself where I love collaboration. I love
Mm.
being able to bounce stuff off of other people. And I low key love affirmation. And when I'm working all by myself with a screen, I sometimes get none of those things. And so I would reach out and procrastinate by talking to my friends on Voxer, um, just to keep a project moving or to give myself a bit of community. But it also meant that a lot of my relationships were very business conversation heavy. And I didn't love that. And so the gift that AI has given me in the last little bit, of having a collaborative partner that is only there for business, to work through business stuff. So that way my conversations are more towards life things outside of business, has been a beautiful reality. Other than that, because of the rise of AI, we have seen a big trend in the industry of people wanting to carve out a space that feels like theirs, that cannot be copied by a robot. And I think this gives us the gift of learning to show up differently and in a way that looks only like us. I think the millennial beige trend of brands, where everybody looked the same, everybody had headshots in studios with their power suit on, or colored backdrops. I know that you're picturing the things that I'm talking about. And messaging even had started to sound the same. I think because of the fact that those things can feel like they can be copied, there are creators out there who are carving out things like content styles. They're carving out spaces that feel more intimate on Substack. They're going back to things that feel analog in a world that's moving so fast that we can't catch our breath. And so your brand gets to become a space where people can slow down to the reality that they're in, um, and whatever that looks like. And so, because of that reality, I got to spend some time in Q1 creating a quiz with some like content style profiles, because I saw this trend on the rise. And I'm like, the first thing my friends are going to say is, but what is my content style? um, and how do I show up in that? And sometimes when we take a concept and we sit in it and we can't figure out what it is for us because there's way too many options, that we never take advantage of that thing and apply it to our business because we get overwhelmed with the figuring it out process. And so my question to myself was, can I figure out a way for people to step into a content style for a while and try one on so that they can then customize it to forge a style of content for their own brand? And that became 8 different content style profiles that you can take a 5-question quiz and figure out which space your brand thrives in and what type of content to match with that in order, to start showing up in a way that feels familiar to your people and recognizable, and all of these different things.
That is beautiful. I am familiar with this, and I fully believe that everybody who is watching this video should take the quiz, which we will link below. But out of my own curiosity, Rachel, what is your content style?
Okay, so this is the funniest story ever. I would have told you that I was the lounge, which wears this title of like so good they can't ignore you. It's kind of like, in my mind, it's the coffee shop in your town that everybody is dying to go to and you cannot get a table at because it's such a vibe. They're the ones that don't have to do any work on social media because just taking photos of the space is good enough content and everybody is dying to be there to share it. That's the vibe of the lounge. And I thought that was the one my brand needed to be. Um, and then come to find out, I was having a conversation with another business friend who had taken the quiz, and we were having some emails back and forth, and her question was, I'm really curious, what is your content? Like, what do you type yourself as? And I said, well, the hardest thing for me is the fact that I understand all of them. And so I'm like, well, maybe I'm this one, and maybe I'm this one. And I can't take the quiz because I know where all the answers go. And so I said, I want you to tell me what I am. Like, from your perception, what do you think my brand is? And so then she sent me a 5-minute long boxer. Um, like, because she had read all the things, and she said, I think you're the atelier. And I was like, and then she gave me the explanation. And I said, you're right. I said, I am a forum thinker with the brand that shows up as the atelier. And I'm like, and who aspires in some way to be the lounge, but I don't have to be in order to sell my services. And I think that that was just such a fun conversation where I got to have someone else get their eyes on my brand and have some revelations when I was way too freaking close to it. Um, and it was another gift of like, oh, I can show up as a more full version of myself, knowing one, this is how people are seeing me, but two, like the atelier feels much more freeing to me than the lounge does. It feels a lot more fun. And so, yeah, I'm really excited to step into that for a little
I
while.
love it. I love that you're gonna, like, almost, like, put that hat on and see how it feels, try it out for a little bit, and enjoy the process. Now, I wanna go back a little bit in our conversation. So, you're loving the authenticity that's happening where people are trying to carve out their space, and yet you're utilizing AI and a big fan of it right now. How do those things blend together? Talk to me about how are those practically blending together, and how are you using something that a lot of people could say, "Oh, this just sounds like a robot, like this is just very basic," and stuff like that, with a beautifully curated and well-defined brand that you currently have? How are those blending together?
I think the first thing is that you have to know what you want to use
Mm,
AI for. You have to know what it's designed to do. And I think when I first started using AI, I was using it for things that it was never designed
mm,
to do. I tried to get it to write content
mhm,
for me. I tried to get it to tell me things and like mainly that it was writing
mhm.
content for me. And I would spend more time editing what AI wrote than I would writing it for
Wow.
myself. And so what I've realized is that AI does so much better helping me structure content from a thought
Mm,
dump. So I heard this quote the other day that says like AI is only as good as the prompter, meaning that if you aren't good at making content, AI won't be good at it
wow.
either. And it's not bad content will never resonate with
Mhm,
people. And AI is really good at making bad content. So instead of making it make my content, I instead use it to get out of my own way.
ooh,
Because one thing that I will do is overwhelm myself with the amount of words I will put into a thought
mm,
dump, or I can get really stuck mid YouTube outline or Instagram caption, or even with a carousel. Sometimes I have a hard time adapting one piece of content to different platforms because they all require a different structure and a different set of pacing. I can't just copy paste one thing to the next platform. And so, what I've realized is that AI is much better at structuring my content than
mhm,
I am. And it can cut down on my love of words because I love words. I love very beautiful words. Sometimes the words I say people don't understand, and they have to pull out their dictionary, which is a hassle. And then other times I have so many words that they miss the point and they don't stick around. And so I lose out on sales. And so it has helped me to be a more
mhm,
concise human, but still show up as me. Um, Also, know that you can make the robot do the thing you want. If it didn't give you the draft, you can say it
mm.
simpler, say it more in my voice, say it more like you get to command the chat thread. You are in the driver's seat, and I think that's the way that I've been able to use it is coming in and partnering with it in like thought leadership, but not because it's leading my thoughts, but because it's organizing them. The other way is that it sometimes gives me the opposite perspective, or I have started asking it like tell me what I'm not
Mm,
saying. What is one thing like another thing I asked the other day is I have a version of I was writing a sales page, and one of the things that one of my programs helps people do is to get unstuck. But I have a way that I get stuck that is not the same as the way that my people get stuck. I get stuck in spirals and thought patterns and inaction because I want to know what the right way is before I move. My people are action
mhm,
takers. They will just do the thing regardless of what the thing is getting. And so they feel stuck because they're taking steps but they're not getting
mm.
anywhere. Um and so AI helped me to get outside of myself and to see me for me and my people for my people so I could talk to them and not talk to me with a mask on,
That's
basically.
beautiful. I love that. And so many good things. Now, you touched a little bit on the brand plan earlier. And so I want to talk a little bit about the brand plan. And I also want to talk about the fact that I know you're leveraging AI in it. So, first, tell me a little bit about the brand plan, and then we're going to get into the fun, spicy bits of how you're incorporating AI.
Yes. So, in short, the brand plan is a 6-week program that walks you through the coursework, the workbooks, with community, um, to get your brand out of your head onto paper and translated specifically into your business so that you show up differently. The main way that we translate it is into your marketing. We come up with a marketing plan that feels like it leverages your strengths and your audience's preference, so that way you can show up in the ways that you need to, that align with your brand and get you in front of your people, and leave all of the "you should do this" advice by the wayside. Because a lot of us are overwhelmed with the amount of opinions people have about what we should be doing in our businesses to grow. But a lot of the time, that advice isn't fit for us. But when we're in the middle of it all, it's really hard to see the forest for the
Mhm.
trees and to actually move forward. And so the brand plan helps you to stop long enough to see what's working, to actually define your brand, and then to translate it so that it makes an impact and it doesn't just live inside of a really, really pretty questionnaire. And then the cohort is there, to be, to like not let you stay stuck, because the one thing I know is going to happen is that when that question of what do you do better than everybody else that does what you do, what makes you uniquely you, you're going to look at it and the cursor is going to be blinking, and if you're anything
Skip.
like me, your thoughts are going to start spiraling and be like, I've never been yeah, exactly, skip, or I've never been good at anything in my life ever, so I'm going to close the tab and come back to this when I do feel good at what I do. But then when never comes, and so you never come back to it, which means that you can't stand up and show up differently because you don't know what makes you different. And so we stand in the gap as your cohort and me as your coach, and don't let you stay stuck. And when you're having a hard time seeing what you're good at, we become the mirror that allows you to see the very thing that you do that is ordinary to you but extraordinary to
That's
someone else.
beautiful.
And this round specifically, we have looped in AI to help with the overwhelm that comes when you stare at the 30-page workbook. Because the one thing that the brand plan is not short on is asking you the right questions to give you the right data to finally define your brand. It's not just going to ask you, what is your why statement? It's going to ask you 10 questions that will give you the right information to then write your why statement. But sometimes it's really hard to pattern spot among your own words. And AI is incredibly good at pattern recognition. And so am I. That's the reason why I created the brand plan. But I can't be there every step of the way for my people. I have my own business that I'm running, and I have this amount of time to give to them. And so I was really struggling before I had the opportunity to make a custom chatbot, with the effectiveness of the program, and kind of getting in my own head about making it really, really work for people. Like, I wanted so bad for them all to have a finished brand plan by the time they left it in
Yeah.
6 weeks. But the problem is, with only our manpower and the hours that we have, we can't always sort through all of the data to figure it
Mhm.
out. And they would eventually get there, but I didn't want it to be eventually. I wanted it to be something that changed the way that they show up within the 6 week time period. And so the beautiful thing is, Cordelia, our brand curator, is trained in the way of the brand plan. She knows all of the workbooks, she knows all of the training, she's listened in on coaching calls so that she knows how I talk to people. And she is adept. She is so good at pattern spotting and summarizing your words to help you see in it what you wouldn't see when you got overwhelmed. And she's so good that she can then help you create the marketing plan, or she can audit your brand, your current brand, with the understanding of the new refined brand, and help you to line out practical steps to start showing up in the new brand without giving your audience whiplash because you've redefined yourself. There's a lot of things that AI is going to help us do in this round of the brand plan that I'm so freaking excited for, because ultimately it's just going to maximize the impact of the time that you put in to understand what your brand is and how that affects the way that you operate in your business and who you are as a human who runs the business.
That is
So,
beautiful.
yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. As someone who has gone through the brand plan, as someone who gets to live life and do business with you, Rachel, I can attest to the fact that the Lord is giving you the gift of easily recognizing people's strengths, standout opportunities, patterns, and things of that nature. And so I think the fact that you took that gift that the Lord has given you and you have trained a bot to help your students and alum be able to like have almost have a little bit of Rachel Lee right at their fingertips in the form of the lovely Cordelia is such a gift that will continue to like bless them as they are like applying the things that they learn in the brand plan. Now, remind me, when does the cart close for this round of the brand plan?
So cart closes on Wednesday, the 26th at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So it is an application process, but the application is only because I only have between 6 and 8 spots available. And the application just lets me know what information, like where you're at coming into the brand plan. It helps me to better equip you as the coach. It's not like a I'm looking through the list and picking the best people type of situation. I am curating it. If we get more than 8 people that sign up, so that way the right people are in the room at the right time. But ultimately, the application just gives me the information that I need in order to to set you up for success in your journey through the
That
brand
is
plan.
wonderful. Now, if you are watching this after cart has already closed, I want to encourage those who are listening to go ahead and join the wait list. And Rachel, we're getting ready to come to a close. I want to honor your time. But before we do, you have learned so many lessons over your few years of life. You are an old soul with lots of wisdom. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to hear it frequently. But over the last quarter, what has been one of the biggest lessons that you've learned over the last 90 days?
It actually came in a call out from an AI thread I had started, and I said, "Okay, don't pull your punches. Tell me what is my actual problem right now in business? What is keeping me stuck?" And it looked at me. It didn't look at me because it's a robot, but it said, "You are the bottleneck." And I think what I've realized is that I get in my own way because I tend to question what I've built instead of standing in it in confidence, like I tell literally all of my students. And so I think I'm in this season where I'm learning that things are more together than I want to believe that they are, and that my mind is mean, as Denna tells me all the time, and that it's probably lying to me. And so instead of setting up camp in spirals and allowing myself to just continue to do this, I have learned to find the ways to stop the spiral so that I can remember to show up as who I am and not as who I am tempted to believe that I
That is
am.
beautiful. Thank you so much for your vulnerability and transparency there. I know it can be scary to like share these things aloud, but one of the things that I love is that you do that so well for other people. And I feel like from the outside looking in, we can look at Rachel and be like, but she's got it all together. She is an aesthetic, or she is a vibe. Everything's wonderful. But yet, when you share transparently, it allows us to feel like we're not alone. And it also trust gives us the freedom to trust you even more when you stand in that strength and you hold a mirror up to us and say, but this is what I see. These are the strengths that the Lord has given you. This is the way that you can stand out in business and continue to grow and walk in confidence. And so thank you for sharing in that way. I'm so grateful for you. Now, as we wrap up our time here, Rachel, for those who want to follow along, for those who aren't already in love with you from knowing you before our call today, but are ready to continue the journey because they fell in love, where can they connect?
Okay, so the one place where I am showing up the most regularly right now is in my email. That is also the place where you can for sure get my content. Unfortunately, the Instagram algorithm isn't always the best. So you can sign up for that on my website, or if you decide to take the content style quiz, you'll immediately get your free pass into there. And then also Instagram. Instagram is where you're going to be able to watch my coffee journey on the regular. That is the one thing you are guaranteed to see is at least my cappuccino that I have every single day. And you can find me there at Rachel Lee Photos. It's two difficult spellings of my name. So it's Rachel spelled like Michael, Rachael, and then Leigh.
Perfect. Friend, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so thankful for you. I'm so thankful for your friendship and for your willingness to share with our friends so freely today.